Diane Keaton's family has just come forward with a revelation no one was ready to hear. The hidden truth inside her final autopsy report has left everyone stunned. What many initially believed was a straightforward death caused by pneumonia now appears to be something far more complex. According to sources close to the investigation, the findings left even doctors without words, and the information uncovered could completely reshape what we thought we knew about Diane's final moments. Was there something her family tried to shield from the public eye? Or was this simply the devastating conclusion to a long and quiet struggle? Stay with me, because what's inside that report turns everything we thought we understood about Diane Keaton's death upside down. Hollywood is in shock tonight as new revelations surrounding the passing of the legendary actress begin to unfold. Known for her eccentric fashion sense, timeless charm, and unforgettable performances in classics like Annie Hall, something's gotta give. In The Godfather, Diane wasn't just a star, she was a cultural icon. What her family has now confirmed in that official autopsy report has left fans, journalists, and even those closest to her completely speechless. For decades, Diane Keaton represented elegance, resilience, and longevity in an industry that worships youth. Even in her late 70s, she was still working, laughing, and showing no hints of slowing down. So when the world learned on October 11th that she had died of pneumonia, the reaction was not only heartbreak, but also confusion. How could someone so vibrant be gone so unexpectedly? Initially, her death was portrayed as a tragic yet natural ending. Reports spoke of a brief illness, perhaps something that quietly progressed out of the public eye. But behind that simple statement, she passed away from pneumonia, there was a silence that felt almost intentional. No added details, no words from her inner circle, no hospital statements. It was as if everyone had silently agreed to say nothing more.
That silence finally shattered when her family made the autopsy report public. And what was revealed has sparked a storm of speculation, not only about her health, but about what could have been happening in those final months. Some believe the report confirms a private battle Diane hid from even her closest companions. Others think it raises questions that may never be fully answered. In this video, we'll unpack everything from the final days of her life to the medical findings inside that report, and the deeply emotional statements shared by those who loved her. We'll dig into the lingering questions that continue to haunt her fans, and the quiet signs that suggest this tragedy may not have been as straightforward as it appeared. But before we break down the autopsy findings, let's step back into the last weeks of Diane Keaton's life, a period that, in retrospect, was filled with faint but telling signals that something was wrong. Those closest to her later shared that they noticed shifts, not just in her health, but in her spirit. And their words after her passing may hold the key to understanding everything that followed. In the weeks leading up to Diane's death, her friends and family began picking up on slight changes, the kind of signs that don't seem urgent until it's too late. Friends described her as appearing a little more tired than usual. Family members recalled that she'd begun to turn down public appearances, something completely out of character for a woman known for her humor, wit, and boundless energy. That shift, they said, was both subtle and unsettling. Diane had always maintained a fiercely private nature throughout her many decades in Hollywood. She managed to keep her personal world hidden from the spotlight in a way that very few stars ever could. She often spoke openly about growing older with grace, about finding peace in solitude, and about her unwavering commitment to staying true to herself. But behind that iconic hat and radiant smile, subtle hints suggested she'd been quietly struggling with health issues, possibly for far longer than anyone around her had. Suspected. Close sources later revealed that Diane had been dealing with recurring respiratory problems since early summer. What she had initially brushed off as a mild seasonal infection slowly started to escalate. Friends urged her to rest and take things easy, but she was determined to keep up with her usual routine, spending time with her family at home, tending to her beloved garden, and even making appearances at a few private gatherings in Los Angeles. One insider explained, she never wanted anyone to worry. That was just who Diane was. Always minimizing things, always trying to make everyone else feel okay. But as September crept closer, her health began to decline quickly. Those close to her shared that she was experiencing severe fatigue and shortness of breath, symptoms she reportedly waved off as nothing more than a simple cold. By the start of October, However, her condition had worsened enough for her to be admitted to a hospital in Los Angeles. Her family chose to remain silent during those days, refusing to issue public statements, holding on to the hope that she would recover quietly and return home. Then came October 11th, the day the world lost Diane Keaton. The family's official statement read simply, "Diane passed away peacefully from pneumonia, surrounded by her loved ones." But to many fans, that announcement felt incomplete. Pneumonia alone? There had been no prior mention of any chronic illness. No warnings from someone so vibrant and full of life. It all felt too sudden, too unexplained. And that's when whispers began spreading that there might be more to this story, something the family had chosen not to reveal at the time. And in fact, they hadn't, because when the autopsy was finally finished, it uncovered details that completely changed the narrative. According to a recent statement from her family, the autopsy results revealed a stunning complication, one that suggested Diane may have been living with a far more serious illness all along. One she perhaps chose to keep hidden, even from the public she deeply cherished. When the official report was made public, the news sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood. What was first described as a straightforward case of pneumonia was revealed to be far more complicated and heartbreaking. The medical examiner's findings showed that pneumonia wasn't the direct cause of Diane Keaton's death. Instead, it was a secondary effect of a chronic illness that had either been undiagnosed or deliberately kept private. The report described extensive lung inflammation and scarring that aligned with pulmonary fibrosis, a progressive lung disease that slowly destroys lung function. For those unfamiliar, pulmonary fibrosis is often called a silent killer, frequently mistaken for something minor like bronchitis or a lingering infection until it's too late. As the disease progresses, the lungs become so weakened that even something as ordinary as a cold can turn fatal. And the most shocking revelation of all, her family confirmed that Diane had known she was battling health issues for quite some time, but had chosen to keep them to herself. One relative, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, said simply, "Diane didn't want sympathy. She never wanted headlines about sickness or photographs of herself looking frail. Diane wanted the world to remember her as she truly was, strong, full of humor, and brimming with life." That revelation shifted the entire narrative. What the public had seen as a sudden and shocking tragedy was, in truth, the outcome of years of quiet endurance. The autopsy also included a troubling finding: traces of medication typically used to treat advanced lung conditions. This strongly indicated that Diane had indeed been receiving medical treatment, though only a very small circle close to her was aware of it. According to one longtime friend from the film industry, Diane had always been remarkably skilled at masking pain. Even during her final public appearances, she appeared radiant, smiling for photographers, laughing with fans, and wearing that unmistakable wide-brimmed hat. But as one producer quietly recalled, something in her energy had shifted. You could sense that she was pushing herself just to show up. The reaction from the public after the autopsy results surfaced was immense. Fans flooded social media with posts of grief and disbelief, expressing both admiration and sorrow. Many struggled to grasp how someone so cherished could have carried such a heavy burden in silence. Others found a new depth of respect for her, praising her choice to protect her dignity, even in her final moments. But not everyone felt at ease. Some began asking hard questions. Could more have been done for her? Was the illness missed too long because of how private she kept her life? And why did her family, even after her death, initially choose not to share those critical details? The Keaton family eventually released a clarifying statement saying, "We wanted to honor Diane's wishes. She didn't want her final chapter to be about sickness. She wanted it to be about love, creativity, and gratitude." It was a deeply personal choice, but one that reignited debate across Hollywood about privacy, transparency, and how public figures choose to face their final days. But there was one more discovery tucked inside that report. A personal note found among Diane's belongings that may have revealed her final reflections, and what she wrote might explain everything about how she faced her last moments. When investigators cataloged Diane Keaton's personal effects, they stumbled upon something unexpected: a handwritten note, carefully folded inside a small leather notebook she reportedly carried everywhere with her. The contents of that note have since been confirmed. by her family, and what Diane expressed in those final lines might be one of the most emotional revelations of her entire life. The letter wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. There was no "Dear family" or "To my fans." It felt more like an intimate reflection, a quiet conversation she was having with herself. According to a family source, the note read, in part, "I have lived a full life filled with love, laughter, mistakes, and miracles. If my time is ending, I only hope people remember me for how I made them feel, not for how I left." That single line brought tears to everyone who read it. It embodied everything about Diane Keaton: her humility, humor, tenderness, and her refusal to let tragedy overshadow her legacy. She seemed fully aware that her time was growing short, but rather than fear it, she faced it with the same authenticity and grace that had defined her extraordinary life and career. She never wanted her final days to turn into a media spectacle or a public tragedy. Diane wished for them to stand as a reminder that even in her last moments, she lived life entirely on her own terms, and perhaps that's the truest reflection of who she really was. A woman who had the power to make the world laugh, cry, and fall in love, yet still hold something sacred just for herself. Her story today stands as both deeply heartbreaking and profoundly inspiring. The shocking revelations from the autopsy may have uncovered the medical truth, but they also exposed something far more powerful: a legacy built on quiet strength, unwavering love, and complete control over her own narrative. And as tributes continue to pour in, one thing has become undeniable. Diane Keaton's greatest performance may not have been in front of a camera, but in the way she lived and the way she chose to leave this world. As the world continues to take in the stunning details surrounding her passing, one truth shines through clearer than ever: she lived with elegance, mystery, and authenticity until the very end. The autopsy might have explained the physical cause of her death, but it also highlighted something much deeper: the incredible strength of a woman who never stopped protecting her loved ones, her peace, and her dignity. For over 5 remarkable decades, Diane captured the hearts of audiences across generations. From her breakout in Annie Hall to her unforgettable performance in Something's Gotta Give, she made vulnerability look powerful and aging look beautiful. She never bowed to Hollywood's rigid standards, she rewrote them. Diane once said, "You can be sexy in 40 or 70 or 80, it's about the soul, not the number." And even in death, she proved that belief to be true. Her passing isn't just a loss to the film industry, it's a loss to every person who admired her for living so unapologetically as herself. Yet in many ways, her story doesn't end here. Her films, her words, and even the private note she left behind remind us that life isn't about avoiding death. It's about embracing every single moment, even the fragile ones. She never wanted to be remembered for her illness, but for the warmth she shared with the world. And in that, she succeeded more than she could ever know. Even now, fans continue to visit her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, leaving flowers and simple handwritten notes that say things like, "Thank you for being you, and you taught us how to live with laughter." Her family's statement ended with a line that perfectly captured her spirit. Diane lived her truth quietly, but completely. She didn't want a spectacle. She wanted love. That is how she wished to be remembered, and maybe that's the lesson she left us with. Legacy isn't about fame, wealth, or the spotlight. It's about love, honesty, and the courage to face life's hardest chapters with grace. So as we say goodbye to Diane Keaton, let's not linger on the sorrow of her passing. Let's celebrate the beauty of her journey, the laughter she gifted us, the art she created, and the message she carried with her until the very end. Remember how you made people feel. Thank you for watching. If Diane Keaton's story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. How did her films, her resilience, or her message impact you personally? Because as Diane herself believed, true connection is what keeps our stories alive long after we're gone.